The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Marcus Hale pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders and squinted through the downpour at the blinking vacancy sign above the Redwood Motor Lodge. The sign buzzed and flickered like it was arguing with itself. Half the letters dark, the other half desperate to stay alive. Much like Marcus himself. He was 41, recently divorced, and driving from Portland to nowhere in particular. His therapist called it an impulsive flight response. Marcus called it a Tuesday. He grabbed his duffel bag from the back seat, locked the car out of habit despite having nothing worth stealing inside it, and jogged through the puddles toward the front office. The bell above the door chimed as he pushed inside. The office was small and smelled of pine cleaner and something else, something faintly floral that didn't match the decor at all. The walls were wood-paneled. A stuffed base hung above the desk. A rack of local tourist brochures stood in the corner, most of them sun-faded and curling at the edges. "Hello," Marcus called. A woman appeared from behind a beaded curtain. She was tall, nearly 6 feet, with copper-red hair cut bluntly at the jaw. Her eyes were an unusual shade of amber, almost gold, and her skin had a faint luminescent quality that Marcus wrote off as the overhead fluorescent lighting playing tricks. She wore a dark green flannel shirt tucked into dark jeans, and she moved with an eerie, deliberate grace, like someone who had recently learned what casual was supposed to look like and was executing it carefully. "You need a room," she said. It wasn't a question. "Just for the night," Marcus said. "One bed, whatever you've got cheapest." "I'm not picky." She studied him for a moment too long. Her eyes moved across his face with an intensity that made him shift his weight from one foot to the other. "Room 7, she said, placing a key on the counter. An actual metal key, not a card. "End of the row. I'm Vera. If you need anything, knock on the office door." Marcus picked up the key. "How much?" $62. He paid in cash. He'd been paying in cash since he left Portland, some vague instinct toward invisibility, and headed back into the rain. Room 7 was at the very end of the building, slightly separated from the others. It was clean inside, which surprised him. The bed was made with military precision. There was a small television, a wooden dresser, a nightstand with a lamp, and a bathroom with surprisingly good water pressure, as he discovered 10 minutes later. He sat on the edge of the bed in dry clothes, eating crackers from his bag, watching a weather report that predicted the rain would stop sometime around Thursday. He was asleep by 9. He woke at midnight to a sound he couldn't immediately name. It was low and rhythmic. Not music, not exactly. More like a frequency. Something that sat just below the range of conscious hearing, but vibrated in the back of his teeth. Marcus sat up. The room was dark except for a thin strip of light under the door. But it wasn't the yellow light of the parking lot lamps. It was blue-white, cold and precise. He went to the window and pulled back the curtain. The rain had stopped. The parking lot was empty except for his car, and a light in the woods behind the motel. Not a flashlight. Not a campfire. Something else. A soft, pulsing glow that moved between the trees with slow, intentional rhythm. Marcus told himself to go back to bed. He put on his shoes instead. He followed the light for about 200 yards before he found the clearing. There were 4 of them. Women, or things shaped like women, standing in a rough circle in the open space between the pines. They were dressed in ordinary clothes, jeans, jackets, boots. But there was nothing ordinary about the way the air around them seemed to vibrate, or the way their eyes, all of them, caught the light from the pulsing object at the center of the clearing and reflected it back at double the intensity. The object was roughly the size and shape of a compact car, though it bore no resemblance to one. It was smooth and dark, like a river stone, but its surface shifted and moved. A slow, liquid rotation of panels and seams that made Marcus's eyes water if he stared too long. Vera was among them. She was the one who spotted him first. "Marcus Hale," she said. Not surprised. Almost rehearsed. "You know my name," he said. He'd paid in cash. He hadn't said his name. "We've known your name for some time," said another woman beside her. She had dark brown skin and close-cropped natural hair and eyes that matched Vera's, that deep, unsettling amber. "Longer than tonight." "I'm Solène," she said. "You should come closer. The perimeter sensors already have your biometrics. There's no point standing at the edge." Marcus stepped into the clearing because his body apparently made decisions without consulting his brain. The 4 women arranged themselves. Vera to his left. Solène directly in front. To his right, a shorter woman with Asian features and long silver hair that couldn't have been natural. She looked no older than 30, who introduced herself as Neva. And behind him, a tall woman with a shaved head and deep-set dark eyes who said her name was Comfort, which struck Marcus as either very reassuring or deeply threatening. "What is that?" Marcus asked, nodding at the object. "Our ship," Neva said simply. "You're going to tell me you're aliens." "We prefer architects," Comfort said from behind him. Her voice was low and unhurried. "But the word alien is functionally accurate." Marcus stared at the ship. He thought about the crackers in his room. He thought about his therapist saying he needed to sit with uncertainty more comfortably. He was sitting with an enormous amount of uncertainty right now, and he wasn't finding it comfortable at all. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Solène and Vera exchanged a glance that carried a weight of communication Marcus couldn't parse. "That," Solène said, "is a longer conversation. Are you hungry? We have food on the ship. Real food, not those crackers." Marcus blinked. They'd been watching him long enough to know about the crackers. "Sure," he said, "because what else do you say?" The inside of the vessel was nothing like the outside. Where the exterior was dark and stone smooth, the interior was luminous. Warm amber light flowing from panels in the curved walls, the floor soft underfoot, the air carrying that same faint floral scent from the motel office. The ceilings arched high. There were no sharp corners anywhere. Everything curved into everything else, like the inside of a seashell. Marcus was brought to a room that functioned as a dining area. Low table, cushions on the floor. Neva set before him a plate of food that looked almost Earth-normal, something like roasted vegetables and grain, but tasted richer than anything he could name. "You've been watching me," Marcus said. "Monitoring," Vera said, sitting across from him. "There's a distinction. From where I'm sitting, it feels like the same thing." Solène settled beside Vera. Comfort remained standing near the entrance, arms folded, watching him with that same unsettling patience. "You were selected 3 years ago," Solène said. "Before your divorce. Before you left Portland. We've been waiting for a window." "Selected for what?" Another exchange of looks. This was going to be a habit with them, Marcus could tell. Vera spoke. "You're aware that your planet is experiencing a significant ecological crisis." "Vaguely," Marcus said dryly. "We've been observing Earth for a long time. Centuries by your reckoning. We came originally for study, cataloging species, atmospheric composition, biodiversity metrics." She paused. "But our purpose evolved." "Into what?" It was Neva who answered, her silver hair catching the amber light. "Preservation. We collect genetic material, biological templates, not just from Earth, from everywhere we've cataloged that shows signs of eventual collapse." Marcus set down his fork. "When you say genetic material, we mean exactly what you're thinking," Comfort said from the doorway. "And before you panic, we want to be clear. Nothing happens without your consent. That is a condition we hold absolutely. It is, in fact, the reason we haven't simply taken what we need and left." "You could do that." "Technically," Solène said. "We choose not to. It violates our foundational ethics. Coerced biological donation corrupts the sample profile. That's both a scientific and moral position for us." Marcus absorbed this. "So you've been following me for 3 years, watching me eat crackers in a motel, because you want a genetic sample. And you need me to agree." "A sample? Yes," Vera said. "But more than that." She leaned forward, and in the warm light her eyes were extraordinary. Not just amber, but layered, like looking into something with depth that kept going. "We are the last 4 of our crew. Our mission has lasted what you would call 260 years. Our ship's biological archive has been compromised 3 times. Once by a solar event, twice by contamination. We've lost irreplaceable material. We're rebuilding," Solène continued. "And the archive needs living contributors. Not just samples, templates. People whose genetic profiles are cataloged while they're alive, updated over time, providing a living record rather than a static one." "You want me to come with you?" Marcus said. No one denied it. "Where?" "Everywhere," Neva said, and there was something in the way she said it that didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like an invitation. "We travel a circuit. 14 catalog systems. The journey takes approximately 40 years by your measurement, though you'd experience it differently in transit." "Differently how?" "You'd age," Vera said carefully, but slower. "Perhaps 12 to 15 years subjective time over the full circuit." Marcus looked around the room. At the four of them. At the curved walls with their gentle amber glow. Why me specifically? Your genetic profile, Comfort said. Rarity of certain markers. Resilience indicators. And, she paused, and for the first time Marcus saw something in her expression that wasn't entirely clinical. And you were leaving anyway. The algorithm identified candidates who had, in effect, already let go of where they were. That landed somewhere tender. Marcus was quiet for a long time. I have questions, Marcus said finally. We expected that, Solen said. Ask them. All four of you, you're the entire crew. Yes. Our original crew was 12. We've lost 8 over the 260 years. Age, accident. One chose to remain on a planet in the Kepler belt. Vera said this without particular sadness, as though loss was simply a variable she'd learned to carry. And you're looking for, what, a replacement crew member? Or a specimen? The word hung in the air with an uncomfortable edge. Neither framing is quite right, Neva said. Think of it more like a collaborator. Someone who contributes to the archive, yes, but also participates in the mission, learns our systems, has a role. What kind of role? We need someone who can interface with Earth-based species during cataloging stops, Comfort said. We've been using synthetic approximations. They're adequate, but not ideal. A living representative reads better to nervous subjects. You want me to be a liaison? Broadly, yes. Marcus looked at Vera. The motel. That was deliberate. We needed to assess you in a natural environment. See how you behaved when you thought no one was watching. And a rare small smile. You were kind to the spider in the bathroom. You didn't kill it. You put it outside. Marcus stared at her. You were watching me put a spider outside. We were watching everything, Comfort said, unapologetically. It's what we do. He pushed back from the table and stood up, needing to move. He walked the perimeter of the room, running his hand along the curved wall. It was warm. Not quite like metal, not quite like anything he had a word for. If I say no, he said, what happens? We erase this encounter from your accessible memory, Solen said. You wake up in room 7. You drive north in the morning. You never think about this again, consciously. And if I say yes? You wake up in room 7, Vera said. You drive north. But you leave a message for someone who needs to know your plans have changed. You pack properly. We pick you up in 4 days, at coordinates we'll give you. And then you come with us. Marcus turned to face them. For women from somewhere incomprehensibly far away, sitting in a circle of warm amber light, waiting for a middle-aged, divorced man from Portland to decide whether he wanted his life to mean something vast and strange. He thought about his apartment, now his ex-wife's. His job, which he'd quit. His therapist, who had said that he needed to lean into the unknown. He hadn't expected the unknown to be quite this literal. What's the hardest part? He asked. The actual hardest part, not a diplomatic answer. Again the looks between them. But this time it was Comfort who answered, and she answered without hesitation. Watching places die, she said. We catalog them. We preserve what we can. But we cannot stop what's coming for most of them. You would see that. You would have to hold that. It changes people. Marcus nodded slowly. But you still do it. There's no alternative that sits well with us, Neva said quietly. He slept on the ship. They gave him a room, small, curved, warm, with a sleeping surface that adjusted to him in a way that should have been unsettling but was profoundly comfortable. He lay awake for an hour looking at the ceiling, which was faintly luminous and shifted in slow, subtle patterns, like a borealis seen from a great distance. He thought about all the practical things. His sister in Sacramento, who he should call. The last payment on his car. The storage unit with the boxes from the apartment. He thought about whether any of these things actually constituted a reason to say no. He couldn't find one that convinced him. In the morning, Neva showed him the archive room. It was vast, far larger than should have been possible given the ship's exterior size, and lined with thousands of sealed cylinders in rows that stretched back further than he could see in the dim light. Each cylinder had a small, illuminated label. Each one, Neva explained, was a species, a catalog, a proof of existence. Some of these are extinct now, she said. The original organisms, gone. But here they remain, complete, retrievable, theoretically, if conditions ever allowed. Marcus walked slowly between the rows. He touched nothing. Are there people in here? Humans. A preliminary catalog exists, Neva said. From our first close observation period. It's incomplete. That's part of what we'd be correcting. He stopped in front of one of the cylinders. The label was in a script he couldn't read. But beneath it, in smaller letters, a translation added later, he guessed, was a single English word. Beloved. He didn't know what species. He didn't know from which world. But someone on this ship, at some point, had taken the time to add that word. He looked at Neva. Who wrote this? She studied the cylinder for a moment. Aurea. She was our biologist. She died 40 years ago, ship time. A pause. She had a habit of adding personal notes to the labels. The others didn't always approve. But no one removed them. Marcus looked at the word for a long time. Beloved. A whole species, bottled in a cylinder, and someone had loved them enough to say so. His sister got a phone call. Jess, Marcus said, standing at a rest stop outside Eugene with a newly purchased backpack and better boots. I'm okay. I'm going somewhere for a while. A long while, maybe. Marcus, what does that mean? It means don't worry. It means I'm going to be doing something that matters. I can't explain it well. Are you in some kind of trouble? No. The opposite of trouble. I think I might be in the opposite of trouble for the first time in a long time. A long silence. Are you sure? His sister asked. No, he said honestly. But I'm going anyway. He arrived at the coordinates on the fourth evening. A wide flat field south of the Cascades, surrounded by dark tree lines and in sky thick with stars. The field smelled of dry grass and pine. He stood in it for 20 minutes before anything happened. Then the air changed, a drop in pressure, a shift in the quality of light, and the ship descended in silence, dark and smooth, settling in the grass without so much as bending it. The door opened. Vera stood at the threshold. In the warm amber light from inside, she looked different than she had in the motel office. Less performed. More herself. She was looking at him with an expression he didn't have a full word for, somewhere between relief and recognition and something older than both. You came, she said. You knew I would. The algorithm said 73% probability, and the other 27%. A pause. Something that might have been, almost, a smile. Was keeping us honest. Marcus Hale picked up his bag. He walked across the grass. He stepped aboard. The door closed behind him, and somewhere overhead, the stars continued their patient, ancient burning, indifferent to the small, extraordinary things happening just below them.